Okay, looks like we're about ready to start here. Uh, Welcome to our presentation today. My name is Kirk Calvar. I'm a senior software engineer and principal at Cal Technology. And today we're going to talk about using SSH and self-signed certificates with Google Cloud Engine. Yay! All right, so Google Cloud provides pretty much a couple of ways for you to access a virtual machine. You can use it through the console, which is pretty easy. They got a little pull down that you can use. Or if you have the SDK installed, you can use the gcloud command to actually access your virtual machine. The one thing I found out was that I like to use SSH. And I've been using it forever. It's one of my toolkits, basic toolkit things. And if I can't SSH into a virtual machine, I'm annoyed. So in this lab, we're going to show you how to configure a self-signed certificate and then upload it to the metadata to the compute service. So you can use your SSH to connect to your VM instance. So I thought that was a pretty simple thing, and actually it wasn't. So that's why we've got this presentation today. So this lab's going to be pretty simple. It's going to be real short, but we're going to generate a local certificate. And then because Google Cloud has a special format for the metadata, we're going to have to modify the public key just a little bit before we import it into the compute engine. And there's a location there that you can see, the SSH key section. It's available automatically every time you start up a compute VM instance. They'll download those keys into your machine, so you don't have to worry about uploading and doing all that, which is nice. And because we're doing that, we can use SSH to log into the VM instance that we've created. I did find documentation on Google about using this SSH. I spent a lot of time with it. It was annoying at best, and it's typically, they do document it, but there's things missing, or it's not really clear on how to get things, and hopefully that's where this presentation will help you to get up and running real quickly. And I have a GitHub in my GitHub repository that so it shows it's the SSH self-signed certificate with GCP Compute Engine, and it will give you a step-by-step on what you need to do, and we'll actually use that during this presentation to help you get started. So the lab prerequisites are pretty easy. You need to have a GCP account, create a project, and enable the compute engine. And that's going to be a little kind of a thing on its own, but you should be able to do that. And then have the SDK installed locally and configured to access your project. And we'll go on from there. Okay. And let's go ahead and get started. All right. So here's the Google Cloud, or not, the GitHub. This is my company GitHub here. And the project that you need to look at is this one right up here on the corner. We'll click on that. And so I try to make these kind of easy. I put a little blurb in there, basically what the presentation says. You'll also notice the presentation's right here if you need it, and all the instructions on how to do this lab are right here. So we have a set of steps right here, and we're going to go ahead and follow those, and we're going to actually create our own self-signed certificate and log into a virtual machine on Google Cloud. Okay, so the first step we're going to do is we're going to make sure that you have your compute engine enabled. So what I've also done is, this is kind of nice. I have all the stuff so that you can cut and paste it. So you should be able to just cut and paste this into your terminal window and do everything you need to do, save you a few steps, and create a few less errors, and hopefully we can get through this pretty quick. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that compute engine is enabled. Go over to your terminal window. And there we go. So we went ahead and we just basically did some stupid Unix stuff here. We just piped it in here and grabbed compute because there's a lot of services enabled, and it looks like we're good to go. Next thing we need to do, we're going to go ahead and generate your public key and private key, or your self-signed certificate. Go ahead and copy that. Okay, a couple things here you need to figure out. So this is the name of my file. And the only reason it's a naming convention, you can do whatever you want. But I wanted to know that it was the Google Cloud. It was a key for the service compute. And this is the login name that will actually be used to log into the VM from SSH. So you need to put that on that when you create it. Okay. And as you can see over here, there's my user ID. And it also matches this over here, which is my user ID on my local machine. Okay, let's go ahead and enable that. And of course, we do the standard. Some of you've already done this before, so this will look pretty familiar. Okay, so we've created it. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's in the directory. We have the private key and the public key. And also notice before I started, there's no SSH directory, if you're familiar with how SSH works. So I've cleaned up this whole situation. So just to make sure that we're only dealing with what we're creating. Okay, so we got that. We're here. So now we're going to actually edit the metadata. We need to do that so we can put it in the format that Google likes. I have no idea why they did that. Maybe just to be a little different, so people aren't importing public keys directly. Pretty simple, but I'll show you what we're going to do. So we're going to copy the public key, call it metadata, and then we're going to go ahead and edit. I'm going to use vi here. You can use whatever you need. And I've got the vi stuff in here. So we're going to use Vim or sed. You can use a text editor if you need to. We're going to use this one right now. Okay. There we go. A couple real simple edits, actually. So I'm kind of like, okay, whatever. And it took me a while to figure out these edits. It's in the documentation, but it didn't work initially. Okay, so we're all set. Well, that's the metadata that we're going to import into your project compute service on Google Cloud. So let's go ahead and, so here's what we've done right here. So before we had the SSH key and my last name there. Now, after we did our edits, we basically just put KS Calvar on the front. That's all we did. That's the whole change, not much. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and copy that into the metadata for the compute service on your project. And there we go. And now we're going to go ahead and check to see what's actually there. So here's our project. We're actually at the dashboard right now. It's just to help you orient yourself because there's tons of stuff in this interface. So we'll go to Compute, VM Instances. All right. And here's the metadata. There's a settings down here at the bottom here. The next one is the metadata. just to see the orientation here so you can find it. Here's a metadata, SSH key. There's our key right there. Okay. And then I'll go back up here and just go to the dashboard for reference. All right. So it's there. Now we're just going to go ahead and create a virtual machine. And I'm using Ubuntu. I'm not sure how you say it, potato. But you can do this. You can do this through the cloud console. We're going to go ahead, since we're using the SDK, we're going to go ahead and continue that. And the name of the shell, I call it Cloud Shell. It's going to be an Ubuntu issue, and this is the actual version. It's going to be a micro, and these are the scopes, which means I'm opening up everything for this particular VM. I don't keep this thing around, so it's not a big issue. Probably for security reasons, you may not want to do this, but for development, it's probably good. And away we go. And we can check this with the Cloud Console. Okay, there's our, pretty quick, isn't it? So there's our shell name. It's an EC2 micro. There's our external IP address that we'll be using. And let's go back up here to the Cloud Console. And let's do a refresh. And there we go. It's right there. So you can see how you can see it in the actual console. All right. Let's go back here. Oh, actually, we need to go here. So what are we doing now? So now we need to connect to it. So let's go ahead and copy that. And we'll go ahead and cut and paste that. Our IP address. Well, the first time you do this, it may not be up and running completely, so you may be a little bit, you may have to do this twice. There we go. Okay, so we're going to just touch this with, make a file in there. Just to let them know let people know we've been there. Okay, because we got some things we're going to do after this too. So we're all done. That's it. Pretty easy, huh? So there's some additional things I'm going to show you today that are not in the instructions. I was playing around with this for a little bit, and I actually used the gcloud command or SDK to connect to the virtual machine, which was actually pretty easy. So, but there were some things that were going on that were unusual that I'd never seen before. I'm going to go ahead and show you that now. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have a VM there, right? So gcloud gives us an easy way easy, right? Okay. Wow. You see what just happened? They're creating they're assigned key. Yeah, I didn't even ask that. It just automatically does that. I'm like, oh, okay. Pretty cool. So let's just go ahead and let them do their thing. They got the key. The nice thing about this command is, guess what? They're going to automatically download the signed key to the virtual machine that's running and log you in. Pretty slick. Pretty slick. So let's go ahead and say, okay, gcloud was here. All right. So now here's the really interesting part. So let's go ahead and look at SSH. So here's your private key. Can you see that? Okay. Here's your public key. No problem. All right. There's the ones that we created and uploaded. They're right there. So let's do something. This is something I found out that I thought was super cool. So there's our login. So let's use the private key that Google created and put in our SSH directory. Oh, holy, that's crazy. If I went through all that trouble to create a signed key with SSH, Google SDK would have done that for me automatically. Save me a couple of steps, save me the editing. All I need to do is just know how it works and I can connect to it. And let's go ahead. Yep, that's our shell. Okay, so there's a lot of interesting things going on here. I think the one thing to know is that when you create a signed certificate with the SDK, it's going to download it dynamically to your virtual machine, which is pretty sweet. If you do it yourself, you're going to have to make the key first, upload the key, and then you're going to have to create your VM. So just to know, just give you an idea of what's going on here. And you may find out more that's going on when you start playing with this, but it was pretty interesting to see that what was going on in the background. All right. So that's the end of the presentation. I thought it was pretty interesting. I spent a bit of time looking at this stuff. I go back and forth between cloud services, and SSH is like my standard toolkit thing, and when they make me have to learn something else, I'm not a happy camper. Okay, so the last thing here is the references. That first reference is for Google Cloud. They have their documentation for using an open SSH client, and that's a lot of the work that I did today is coming from that document. The second one is the GitHub, and that shows you the step-by-step that we used. That's where that's located. And then this presentation is actually located on my YouTube channel, and that's the link for that below. So hope you enjoyed the presentation today. And again, my name is Kirk Calvar with Cal Technology IT Consulting.